Hello.
It says it's setting up our meeting. Setting up. I'm going to boomerang. We're live.
We're live.
We are live. Can I do this? Well, this is like...
It's like meta.
Inception.
If I have my phone too.
Inception. I'm like, why Inception? Okay. We're live. Jess is on. I don't know. Okay, I say Jess, but I don't know if you go by Jessie or if it's just Jess. I feel like I got Jess from you. Krista's on. Okay, I'm posting to the Insta. I'm posting to the gram, people. I wish I had a little swipe up thing. I'm not cool enough for that. Karen's here.
Dang.
Is that Karen? Karen? Is that our Karen?
I don't know. They flew by, whoever it was.
Our Karen. It's our Karen. It's not our Karen. Hi, too.
This is weird. I have us on my phone and here. So I just have to ignore it.
It's trippy, right?
It is.
Like hide my video. Oh no. Krista said us saying Inception just keeps looping. Probably because it was on my phone and I was talking instead of posting the story. Hopefully it's gone. Yes, it's our Karen and Jess.
Oh, good. Hello.
Great. Want to get started?
Yeah. Okay. Should change my name here, huh?
I don't know. If you want to.
Sure.
I can't do that either.
Then people can find me if they want to.
You should do that. It's feisty.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hello. What are you drinking? Oh.
I have some peppermint tea because I have some work to do tonight. So it's in Double M Pottery. I just got this summer from my friend Angie. Thank you, Angie, if you're watching. And I love it.
Where is that? Do you know where they're?
I have no idea. She sent me yarn and this, and I'm a ceramist sometimes by day, so she knows I love some good pottery.
What are those like? It's not speckles. Can you tell I only know yarn?
It's the clay body. So there's actually little chips it's basically rocks in the clay body, and when it's fired, they darken. So there's white glaze over this, and then this is under glaze. So this is matte, and then this is shiny.
Oh, cool.
I should do a live wheel throwing thing too.
Please do. Please. Okay. Cool. Everyone, if you're here with us live, thank you. Thank you. If you're watching us later, thanks for coming and checking us out. My name is Brianna, and I am the dyer, designer, candle maker, knitter, cursor behind the Little Wolf Knits. I realized this week I made a few stories and cursed, and then was like,
I thought you meant cursor like a mouse.
No, cursor. Like I curse a lot because I'm from New Jersey, and so I think it's in my blood. But maybe that's just an excuse. Anyway, I'm Brianna. Welcome back to week 2 of the Self-Care Collaborative. I am here again for a second week in a row. I feel so lucky with not only an awesome maker in our community, but a personal friend, Wendy. And we're here. We're going to chat a little bit about self-care, about making, about creating, what that looks like. Darian's here. And yeah, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are.
So I'm Wendy. I'm also Warm Stripes on Instagram, and I'm an art teacher by day. I teach high school art. I teach drawing, architecture, ceramics, sculpture, yearbook. I'm the yearbook advisor, and I knit for self-care. And of course, on breaks and over the summers, like when I do all of the creative things. I'm also a Leo and have 2 cats and a husband, and I live in Massachusetts. I should probably say that.
Those things feel important.
Yeah.
Leos, I click well with Leos, I think. Michael's a Leo also. I'm an Aquarius. People know. No, I think so, right?
Wait, what are you?
Aquarius.
Ah, that makes sense. Fire, water. Yeah.
Yeah, right? That works?
Yeah.
I'm also like so jealous of you, Wendy, because you get to do arts all day. And like,
Of I I'm jealous of my students because I tell them if I'm working, I'm totally in the zone. I don't want to be talking to anyone. I want to have my music in. So I'm around art, but I don't always create. Like I do demos all day, I'm sketching, I'm touching clay, but I'm never actually making something. So
mm,
that's the sad part.
what's that? It's like right in your face.
I know. Like,
So,
oh, supplies.
so you said you're warm stripes. I don't know if you want to do this now. I don't know if you want to do this later, but if people don't recognize the name warm stripes right off the bat, you want to share some of your things and how they might know you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of a novice designer. I knit because I want to knit and I do it for self-care, but I've done a little designing. So I started, these are my paint pan socks. So this is one of each. I still have not finished the second sock of each pair. We can just pretend they're a pair. But I started these in March, right before we shut down, and I called for testers and we were testing in the beginning of shutdown. So they're sort of special, they're my COVID socks. And then I also brought that color work design into a cowl, which it's a little secret. I never actually attached the cowl. So it's a paint pan scarf. So that's sort of what I've designed that's out there in the world. I also have a blanket. I have it right next to me. This is my color therapy blanket. I just call it that because there's 5 strands of colorful fingering weight yarn held together. And it just kept me happy last winter and warm and cozy. And I saw all the colors all the time. And that's why I made it.
Yeah.
So that's what's out there in the world. I mean, I don't have much, but I love to create and I love colors. I have a whole bunch of designs in my head, but I just don't have time. So hopefully over winter break, March break, and then summer, obviously, I hope to design a lot. So I hope people are out there ready to test, ready to make.
And that's cool because Wendy, I know we met after that. We met May, maybe.
Yeah, I think May.
And so you had already had those designs out. And I guess I didn't know too much about your journey, but it feels like it makes sense to tie it in here. So tell us a little bit about what your journey in this community has looked like. You talked a little bit about being an art teacher. How did you end up in this community? How did you get here with these designs, sitting with me? What's it look like?
It's a long journey. Well, my grandma taught me how to knit when I was maybe middle school. I was young and she taught me how to knit, I think maybe 7th or 8th grade. And she always did cross stitch. And I always considered myself an artist. I am an artist. That's what I define myself as. So I always loved to draw, make friendship bracelets, weave, whatever I could get my hands on, I was doing. So I spent the night at my grandmother's house and she said, "Do you want to learn how to knit?" And I stayed up until like 2 a.m. and basically made a whole scarf. And then next, I'm like, I want to try cabling. So I just was trying to learn all the things.
How
And
old
then
were you?
I was, I think, in 8th, maybe 9th grade, because I know that the following year or the year after, I was in a play, in a musical, and my friends and I would knit. And that was what we did while we were waiting to go on stage because I was not like a lead character. I was not good at singing, but I was one of the choral members.
Okay.
So we would knit just in a theater as we were waiting to go up. And then I would kind of do it here and there. I did some knitting during college to just kind of rest my brain. And then I got a new job. So fast forward to like 2 years ago, I got a new job. I had to move. I just got married. It was all these things changing in my life. And I had like a really weird autoimmune reaction and my hands were blistered. I don't know if it was eczema or hives or what, but I couldn't use my hands in the way that I always had to draw and paint. So I just kind of had to find something else to do. So I jumped back to knitting. And knitting was just something I could do that was clean and relaxing. And there's someone outside my window. Sorry, I'm distracted. But I sort of jumped back into that. And that was in 2018, I think, fall of 2018. I kind of jumped back into knitting. I started the the Instagram and just started with this blanket. I got all these yarns from Rhinebeck. That's kind of what catapulted that. And I've just been knitting since, but now I'm having this urge to go back to drawing and painting. So
Uh-huh.
my life just takes all these different creative turns, but right now I'm just super into the knitting.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I hear that. Also, Darian just said that she has never done a cable. She's been knitting for 5 years.
Darian, come on. I'll show you how to do it. Next time we go on Zoom.
I feel like that surprises me. I feel like I've seen things of hers that are cable.
Yeah. They're not too hard. Everyone's afraid of them, but they're if you can do color work and you can do sweaters and yarn overs, I mean it's not that difficult. I'll show you.
I mean, I could talk about like designing and yarn and your journey there forever. And so maybe I need to reel it in a bit, but I'm like, wow, you also got back into knitting about 2 years ago. You your first designs in their color work. Like that's also you're not scared of taking risks.
No, I like to just if I have something in my head, actually I have a baby. Where is it? This is my baby paint pan test. I just tried it out. I'm like, all right, I got it. Let's design some socks. Like once I have it in my head, I just have to see it come to light. And then once these were done, I have to show you all these, whoever's watching. This is bad. Like I published this design and never finished these. So once it's out of my brain, that's it. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm done with it. I might try different colors, but it's out of my system.
And so is designing like creating, getting that out of your head, is that part of self-care for you? Or like what does self-care look like in your life?
I see someone say, "Ah, baby paint pan." I know they're so cute. So self-care to me, I think is just using my hands and using my brain in that visual way. So sometimes it's designing, sometimes it's just doing the stitches and having that quiet meditative moment. So it kind of depends. Sometimes it's looking at colors, sometimes it's just pairing colors and seeing what they'll look like together. And then I kind of have these sweater ideas in my head, but it just depends on where I am. Like in the summer, I have so much time to design, and then right now it's just about like vanilla knitting, stripes and colors, relaxation.
Mhm. And so I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of like flexibility there and a lot of like ebb and flow and what that might
Mhm.
look like at any given point. How do you like where did your concept of self-care come from? What has that journey for you kind of looked like?
I like I said, I define myself as an artist, so to me it's not really self-care, it's just who I am.
Mm.
And I've always been one to take naps. Like if I'm tired and stressed out, I will lay down and take a nap. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm the opposite of Kelly. If you all watched last weekend or last week, I was laughing because she can't slow down. And for me, I'm like, I have a lot of work to do. I'm just gonna lay down for an hour.
Mhm.
I have to do it. So I think when I had the skin issues and couldn't draw and use like pristine white paper and my hands hurt, I had to find another way and I had to slow my body and my mind down. And that was when I realized that I needed it. I needed the self care, take the deep breaths. I had to like use essential oils and just calm my brain. And that's
Yeah.
when I really noticed that. I think I have a little anxiety. It's not diagnosed, but I know that my brain just spins out of control.
Mm. And it's interesting because I hear that piece of like there's awareness around that and this that
Sorry.
like that's right. There's this gift that you have that like you can slow down or tell yourself to take a break. It just wasn't always knitting. It sounds like it kind of looked a little different. And then unfortunate circumstances really are kind of what pulled you back.
Yeah, I was sort of forced to say, like, this is what you need in your life.
Mm.
And, when I couldn't make art, I think that made it worse. And then COVID hit, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
Mm.
But I just need to have that in my life. I need to have that quiet 60 plus minutes of just sitting and relaxing, even if I come home from a long night of work. I'm a dorm parent too, at my school. So sometimes I come home at 11:30 at night, and I just have to knit for like half an hour before I go to
Mhm.
bed and just come down from that wild, brain spurt.
Uh-huh. Also, my sister came on. I know you don't know her, but you've heard a lot about her. She
Hello.
she said, me right now, laying down after a hard day with the migraine, taking a nap with my weighted face mask.
See, she's an artist too, though, right? She gets it.
Yes, she's an artist. She gets that. You guys are on the same page there. And it's interesting that part of like, I recognize how important it is for me to like take that time. I hear you saying that. Why is that important to you? Like what?
Like I said, I will spin out of control if I don't calm down. And I'll just, I'll get thinking ahead and thinking too much in the future of things I'm worried about. But I just feel more comfortable when I have that quiet time. And it's also who I am. Like I said, it's how I tell my story to the world. I mean, the paint pan socks, I actually brought another source of inspiration. So these are my watercolors that I used in college. One of my favorite professors gave them to me. And so this is me kind of telling that story of these colors, where have these colors been? And I couldn't paint. So that was my time to like interact with these and think about, I don't know if I can turn this, but like all the little holes in there, those are holes from my paintbrush spinning around. And that's why those are in this. So I sort of like how this is a story of those paints,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it sounds like the time is not just, I mean, again, I think Kelly and I talked about this last week that like sometimes there's this idea that like I just need to be relaxing and like taking a bubble bath. And it sounds like part of that for you is not just having time to not do anything or relax, but it's figuring out how do I tell my story? How do I want to craft my narrative and like put it out to the world?
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of taking care of yourself, or like how does that fit into?
Yeah, I think so. For me, at least. I mean, some people find their way differently, right? Some people define their life by their relationships, which I do. I have really strong relationships with people, but I like my internal alone time. I do like quiet time outside. I love nature. I don't have a lot of it around me, but I do love to be by water in the woods, hearing birds. I love animals, so anything that's sort of the non-creative quiet time for me, and the self-care is just being alone because my
Mhm.
job is so person dependent. I mean, I have tons of students and they're constantly requiring my attention, and I feel like I give a lot to them. I feel like I give them a lot of my attention and care and in love. I want them to also put these things into their art, so I'm constantly pulling that out of them. So when I get home, I just need to kind of bring it back to myself and get back to like who I am, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I hear a bit of like there's something grounding, whether it's creating, whether it's being in nature, there's something like grounding about having time to just sit and be with yourself, whether you're like reflecting on who you are or your journey, or like just enjoying like the present and where you are in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the grounding just keeps coming to mind when I hear you say that. And that sounds like such a stark contrast to what you're doing all day.
Yeah. And I love my job. I love people. I wouldn't say type A, but I'm a Leo, like I said. I love people. I want people to love me. And I feel like all day I'm trying to keep people happy and trying to keep the peace and make them be at peace with themselves. And if they're not having a good time in my class, it upsets me. Like, what am I doing wrong? Why don't they like creating?
Yeah. How did you end up? Because I hear like those, it sounds like you're the kind of person who like needs the balance. Like I need both. I need the time to ground and reflect by myself, and I need that interaction with other people. And I'm curious how you ended up as an art teacher. Like what was that journey
Oh,
like for you?
I grew up with tons of little cousins, older and younger. I have 30 first cousins. I'm from a big Catholic family. So I would always babysit my cousins. I would babysit kids in the neighborhood, and I was always bringing activities for them to do. And so I loved doing that. Obviously loved art. I took any art course I could in high school. And then when I went on the college search, I was thinking, I love psychology, I love art. So what brings that together? And I almost went for art therapy. And then all the schools I applied to had art therapy. And then I went to Alfred University. I got there and I thought, well, I don't want to do art therapy, but I'll do education because it's like the next best thing for mind, body, soul, all of that. So that's how I got to it. But I feel like it is a bit of art therapy in a way. It's
Uh-huh.
not the clinical side of it, but it does help the mind, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like you know this, Wendy, but other people might not know this, that I actually took quite the opposite path, that I was originally going to school to be an elementary ed teacher. Did you know?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my undergrad, I double majored. Luckily, because my school, you had to double major if you were an ed major. And most people just major, like their double major was whatever they were going to teach. But since I was elementary ed, I was like, oh, I guess I'll do psych. Like that sounds cool. And got to the end, my senior year. I was going into senior year. I was going to be student teaching full time. I had like done my observations. I'd been in classrooms. And I was like, I don't know if this is it. Like, I don't know if this is where I end. And
Wow,
so,
you got all the way to student teaching.
yeah,
And that's enough to scare someone away.
I was like, do I only want to talk to 5-year-olds all day? I don't know. I like them, but all day, every day, that's a lot.
Yeah, I definitely could not do middle school. Sorry if you are a middle schooler or have middle school children, but they're a lot. They're very intense developmentally. There's a lot going on there. And
I'm
then,
sure anyone who has a middle schooler understands what you're saying. Zero explanation.
right, they're like, yes, I don't want to teach them either. No, but high schoolers, they've got a lot going on as well, but they have skills for creation. So it's a little bit easier to talk to them. They can put more out there in the world, where little kids, I feel like, are just learning colors, which I love color theory, but I don't just want to talk about color theory and simple mark making. I want to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, I know this, obviously we have conversations about this. But you said like, yeah, even teaching high schoolers is a bit like art therapy, even though it's not. And there is such a therapeutic aspect to art and creating and making, right?
Well,
And so,
they're all going through a lot. I mean, even if it's like their boyfriend didn't text them, like that's a lot for them. So sometimes they just need to come in and work with clay and just plug in their music and have the time. This is a good story if you want to hear a story. So I had a student a couple of years ago who went away for Christmas break, and he was late coming back because his best friend died in a motorcycle accident. And
ooh,
when he came back, his assignment, they were making a clay vase, and they had to put their story on it. It could be a specific story, it could be general symbols of who they are. And he dedicated this vase to his friend. And I've never seen him so into his work, so content, so happy, so at peace. And I'm like, this is why I do this.
mm,
Because for him, that was the best thing that he could have done for himself, was to quiet down and dedicate all of his thoughts, his actions, everything he did was dedicated to his friend.
yeah.
You could do that in English, right? But I
Mhm.
don't think you can do that in math and science and history, you know?
Yeah. And even, I don't know, even in English, there's something different. I don't know if it's like the words are limiting, but there's something different about being confined to like a set of rules about how you need to express something that I think art lets you do in a really different way.
Well, I think you can hide some things too, right? Like you're not saying everything you mean. People can pull from it what they want. You can pour out really heartbreaking or happy moments where you don't have to say the exact
Yeah.
thing you're actually portraying, right?
Yeah. And so so Wendy, I hear you, like we're talking a bit about how therapeutic it is for your students. How does that fit into your self-care, or does it, like helping students go through that sort of process?
I don't know if that necessarily helps me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I use art for therapeutic purposes. Like sometimes I have a person I'm thinking about and I draw a portrait of them or a moment that I want to illustrate. And sometimes that will get it out for me. A lot of times, yeah, I do draw a portrait of someone who passes, or I actually have, I don't know if it's these sketchbooks I have with me. I did do an illustration of Trump and then of Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about everything and as I was drawing him, I like had his voice in my head. And so it helps me to process, and teaching doesn't really help that, but I know what it's doing for my students. I
Yeah.
hope for some of them. Some just do it because they want the credit.
That's cool though, that there's like a difference between I'm not getting some immediate benefit in doing this. Like, this isn't necessarily what I need to take care of myself. And I do it anyway because I recognize like how important it can be, or like what a big impact it could have.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And I think that's just me wanting to be with people. I mean, I am a people person. I love relationships and people. So I
Mhm.
just like to see them happy is what it is, but it doesn't necessarily do anything for me. I'm trying to find, oh, here it is. Everyone, look at this. How timely. January 19th, I wrote, "Bye, Obama." And then this inauguration, January 20th. So there you go. But there's, I mean, I just have like weird sketch after moment after, I mean, there's just random stuff in there. So I try and fill my sketchbooks. I haven't really touched one in months, but that's what I need to go back to because I miss sketching. I miss that act of like cross hatching and developing an image.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk a little bit more about this process. And you've mentioned a little bit about some of the things that have kind of pushed you one way or another way in terms of what that creating looks like for you. How do you find that balance? So, like, you've been knitting for a while, you haven't sketched in months. How do you know what you're needing, or like, do the different arts, the different forms of your creation do something different for you?
Yeah, I think my mind is quieter when I draw.
Hmm.
And I've only found that out by like toggling between the two. I forget what I drew recently, but I realized that knitting is fine. It relaxes me, but drawing, like I literally can't see what's around me. I'm like totally in the zone.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I do need to go back to it because I feel like it does something that knitting never will. But
Mm.
now I can go back to it, and it's just good to know I can always make whatever I wanna make, and I don't have to be tied to anything. That's why I'm trying not to do test knits or commissions. Commissions just kill my spirit.
Mm.
So, I've been saying no to a lot of people because I know that, if I'm drawing for someone else, it's not satisfying something in my brain and my heart.
Mm.
So, there's not really, I mean, as long as I'm making something, I'm happy, but I do miss the drawing and painting, and then I know if I do that, I'm gonna miss knitting, so I can't find a balance. I have a full-time job, I can't find a balance. If someone knows, tell me.
I know, really. I've been saying that. Anyone who's watching, hit me up. We can make a lot of money. I told Kelly about Scott, like the care king. We're
Mm.
doing really well right now. If someone has the answer here.
I think if I made a schedule for myself, and what I've done in the past is, it's over now, but there's Inktober,
Mhm.
and it's through Jake Parker, who's an illustrator, and I've done it a couple years. I didn't do it this year. But he has a daily illustration for, I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn that off. My email's going crazy. There's an illustration every day and there's a topic you have to follow. So it's
Mm.
every day for the month of October. And there's drawing challenges all over the place. So I should just do that to get myself back in and do like a 20
Mm.
minute to an hour drawing, dive in, shut down, listen to some music, and that'll catapult into something else, and I'm sure I won't be knitting as much.
Oh. What do you think keeps you from? I mean, I know you had mentioned probably back in September that you were like, oh, I'm going to do Inktober.
Nope.
That came and went. What gets in the way of you finding that balance or just keeping that time that sounds like it's really important for you to take?
It's definitely work. I mean, I'm tired when I come home
Mm.
and I don't even have that long of a work day, but it emotionally is taxing. So I'll rest or house chores. I'm really glad I don't have kids right now because that would take even more time. And I know kids are really great and they're worth the time, but I'm just not ready to give that of myself right now. That answer your question?
People are going to hate my channel. They're going to be like, is Brianna only friends with people who hate on having kids? As I'm here, like, yeah, too much work.
I think it's, once you have them, I'm sure I know I'm more productive when I have a schedule. Like I make time for things when it's in the summer. I wake up, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have a slow day. I'm gonna sit outside, I'm gonna read. And so I have the same amount of knitting time as I did in the summer.
But that's so interesting, like this, I don't know, the recognition of like being more productive when you're on a schedule, but is it okay to not be productive if like is that part of, maybe this isn't clear enough, but I'm like, oh, but maybe that's part of self-care, like not doing the thing when you don't want to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's something you enjoy, even though when you do it, it brings you some sort of benefit.
I feel like I don't need a schedule to do something creative. If I want to do it, I'll do it. Like if I'm watching Netflix, I'm usually knitting. Or back when I was drawing, like I'd be working on a portrait as I was watching TV or have music on. Like there's always some sort of stimuli. There's like music and art or music and knitting or TV and knitting. I mean, I always have something that's keeping my brain going. I don't think I sit quiet often. It's probably bad. I should sit in my thoughts more, but I think that's where taking walks comes in. Like when I walk to work, which isn't very far, but when I walk to work or I live in front of a graveyard. So sometimes my husband and I walk in the back, and that's nice to just have quiet time. We don't see too many ghosts.
I was going to say, in the graveyard, that feels like an art teacher thing. Like the art teacher would be okay with living next to a graveyard.
My cousins used to live next to a graveyard, and we would always play back there. So to me, it's fine. Like I just grew up in a graveyard, so it's okay. And it's history. I feel comforted, I think, by the history of all these people that have come before us and looking at the names and the dates. I mean, I think it's interesting.
That's so interesting and so far.
Weird.
Not weird, just so far off from, I live nowhere near a graveyard and I am like scared shitless.
Really?
Michael like messes with me because he thinks it's funny, but like I'll hear a noise and be like, what was that? He was like, that was a car. What was that? That was a tree. Brianna, he's like, how did you live alone for so long? I'm like, I don't know. Easy say, here too. It's actually quite peaceful.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And I think if you are aware of that, but this summer we wanted to go out and watch this meteor shower, the one in August, I forget which one. My husband and I were outside at like 2 or 3 a.m. We just put out a blanket. We wanted to watch the stars. And of course it was cloudy. He goes, oh, do you see that like mist that's going across the graveyard? I'm like, Dan, it's like 70 degrees. There's no mist. I said, I don't see anything. So I think we saw a ghost. But he's like, no, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm like, well, I didn't see a cloud on a 70-degree night in a graveyard.
That's terrifying. Darian says she loves cemeteries. What is with y'all? Weirdos up in here. And so I'm interested. So we talked a little bit about challenges, what makes it hard. Obviously, you're busy. Obviously, you work. It sounds like your job's super draining. and then coming home and taking time for yourself. You're also married. So how does that fit into the schedule? Is that hard at all, or does that ever become a problem? Or
No, my husband is very on his own too. Like he likes his alone time. We both have our things that we do. So we try to take time to take walks or, eating meals together. But otherwise we like to be alone. And I think the hard part is just seeing our families. But with COVID, we don't go anywhere. So it's fine. We've been together 13 years dating and then married 3.
that's long. I didn't know you were together that long.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So people are like, you're newlyweds, but we're not really newlyweds.
Y'all are used to, you have your routine.
Yeah.
Also kind of doing his own thing. So that works out. And it sounds like, I mean, one of my questions, or one of the things I was kind of thinking about while you were talking, you talked about designing the paint pan socks once we kind of went into quarantine. Is like self-care or taking care of yourself in general, how has that changed since March? I know you mentioned family. Maybe that's taken something off your plate, which is not such a bad thing. But how's the rest of taking care of yourself shifted, or has it at all?
I think I just really pay attention to it. Like I know that sometimes I just have to turn off the news or, just have that time to just stop thinking about everything. So I think it's so important in 2020. It's just, yeah, I need it for sure. But I try to balance too, like reading at night, shutting off the phone, putting down the knitting, stopping work and saying, okay, I can deal with this tomorrow, and just reading before bed or trying to change it up to do something different for my brain.
Yeah, a bit of that. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear it. I think Kelly said it a little bit last week too. Like something about quarantine was like, all right, this isn't really an option anymore. Like I need to take care of myself. That's just something I need to do. It might look different, but like however it is, I need to figure that out. It sounds like variety has been important to like what over the years and over maybe even day to day, finding some variety rather than like getting stuck in some routine or schedule.
Yeah, what do you do? Is it a lot of knitting? I know you like to read because we've read some books together.
I think I tend to be more of like looking for variety also. Bye, Michael. Also, I don't know if you're watching the YouTube, but Darian said Ethan says hi, Bree and Wendy. Hi, Ethan.
Oh,
hi. I love how I feel like partners are just going to be part of this collaborative. But what do? I think variety is important for me too, which I know some people are not like that, but I wouldn't say I get bored, but in most of my life, I've been so used to doing so many things. Like growing up, I played sports, but like multiple sports every season all year. And I did theater and I did dance and I did gymnastics. And I just have a really active brain. So I think I'm used to like going. And I don't necessarily like go to something, abandon it and try something new, but I like kind of popping around. Like I think you said, like designing, like, fuck it. I don't know. I have nothing else to do. I might as well just try it and see what happens.
I also get all or nothing with something. Like I got on this kick with these portraits I was going to draw, and I rented a studio space. I bought a giant canvas. I was going to dive in. And that was 2 summers ago. And then I don't know what happened, but I just stopped doing that, was knitting. And now I'm like, I really want to try spinning or like weaving or something. And I'm like, no, you can't, because then it'll go on that trajectory.
Yeah.
So I have to stop myself sometimes because there's so many things I want to do.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, is it that simple? Do you just tell yourself like no? And you
Yeah, a lot of it, there's supplies you need. So if I just don't buy the supplies, I can't do it. No one buy me a drop spindle or bats, or we'll be in trouble because then I'll have to like do that for 2 years. My,
That's
my
funny.
brother just bought me all these colored pencils for my birthday. It's like a new set of colored pencils. So I think that's what's getting me. If I have nice tools, nice supplies, that's what really inspires me.
I hear that. I totally hear that. I think I get that. I think I tend to be the same way. Like even when I started dyeing, I was like, I think I did some avocado dyeing and then immediately was like, okay, I'm doing this and like bought supplies and like bought a bunch of shit. And I was like, what? I moved, first of all, I was in Texas, moving back across the country in a few months, but new toys and like new gadgets excite me. And so then I'll just be like, and I'm off down that path. And then once those things aren't new anymore, I'll stick with it. Like I won't stop it, but I'm like, oh, that thing looks shiny and new too.
I know. I know. I've tried the socks. I have some ideas for more color work, but I'm like, now I have to try sweater designs or like shawl design. It's like something else I have to try. So
Yep.
I was thinking about trying to dye avocado from avocados or onions, to get, but that sounds like it's a gateway dyeing technique. I just won't try it.
It is. It's a gateway for sure. I mean, really fun.
I'm
Like,
just gonna come visit you sometime, some year,
yeah.
and I'll just do it at your house. And
Okay.
okay,
Once the world opens, we have lots of plans, but we
yeah.
can cool. And I know we talked a little bit last week. Kelly had shared a challenge or like homework assignment to folks out in the world who are kind of following along in the self-care collaborative. And so we're talking a bit about like what works for us and what we've tried and what our process looks like. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about some sort of homework or challenge or encouragement for other folks out there that you want to share.
I was thinking about that. I thought you were gonna ask me for a homework assignment. All right, open up your sketchbooks, and no, my homework for you is to not make yourself care in order to make money or to do it for someone else. If you are knitting something to sell at a market, I mean, maybe that's self-care for you, but if you find a color that you really love and a pattern you really love for you, do it for you.
Mm.
And that's what will make you the happiest, I think.
So some sort of what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is like if you happen to be selling it or making it for someone else and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But don't let that be the thing that gives you permission to do what you want to do. Like allow yourself to do it, even if the only reason is because you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we make that a tangible, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be. This Cal now is going to be running till March, so it doesn't have to be quick and easy. But what would you say like next step? So if someone's never done that before,
I would say well, we don't want to make it that someone has to buy something. But for me, I'm always inspired by color. Usually I buy yarn and then I'm like, okay, now I want to make socks from that or something. I don't usually buy for a project.
uh-huh.
But maybe it could look different for anyone. I mean, if you like to knit socks, for instance, maybe think about a favorite memory, or maybe this is the assignment. Let's scrap the other one.
Okay.
Find colors that inspire you because of something that you love. So if you're making striped socks, if you're knitting color work, if you're doing something, take out a sketchbook, take out a photo, find those colors that have a connection. That's your homework. Color connection.
I love that.
There
I
we
love
go.
it a lot because it felt like the important thing about your first point was like let yourself be be inspired for no other reason than because you want to be. Like it doesn't need to be for the sake of production or getting something done. So focusing more on that inspiration piece, like how do we get inspired? And I really like the advice of like, for folks who maybe don't do that, like there might be folks who have never knit something for themselves, or they've worked with the yarn that they have that's left over from another project or a market. And so this piece of a memory you have, or something that makes you happy, or something that sparks some sort of joy or like fond memory, I love that.
Yeah, like find it could be the logo to your favorite pizza shop you went to with your best friend last week. Like it can be any color combination, but find that little spark of memory or connection or inspiration. Don't just like knit it because it's pink and you like pink.
I I love that. I think I really, really love that.
Like dig a little deeper, everybody.
Uh-huh. And maybe this is just because I find that with the pieces that I love the most, like they usually have some bigger connection to me than like, I just like the way those colors look together. I usually find the most joy. Like even this. So it's funny that this is your homework, and I had no idea this was going to be your homework.
I didn't either.
Sweater. This is my second soldatna that I've made. All of these colors are from, so I don't, when I travel a lot. Like that's something I do in my life that before COVID, I really enjoyed. And instead of like spending money on souvenirs or like, I don't know, I'm not like really a tchotchke person. I'd buy yarn. I'd try to buy locally dyed yarn, like a local dyer. I'd go to a local yarn store and buy something to make with those memories like wrapped into it, right? And so this yarn, it's like, I guess it's my palette. I was going to say it's not like super my color palette, but I guess it is. But all of these yarns were from a different local yarn store on my cross country road trip with Michael. So when I was driving, he flew down to Texas. We got in the car, we drove across Texas, we drove across the states and back, and we stopped at like a bunch of, some were local yarn stores, some were accidentally a person's home that was marked on Google as a yarn store because they were a doctor. And so, like, really funny stories and memories. But I think now I look at this sweater and this project and I'm like, wow, it's so much more than just like, oh, I like the aesthetic of that sweater.
Right.
All of these memories and like all of this inspiration wrapped into it. But like no one knows that, right? Like unless
Right. And it's only self-care is about self, right? No one has to know that about it, but that makes you want to put it on. It makes you want to wear it. And Allie from Explore Knits, I'm sure maybe she's watching this, but if you're watching this, I am so excited she did the Italy collection. I traveled to Italy. It was a really meaningful trip for many ways, for many reasons, but I bought the kit in every single one of those colors. Like she had memories that she dyed them from. I have memories from the colors, like paintings I did with those same colors. So I'm going to knit a shawl, but it has so much more meaning. So thank you, Allie, for making that color choice for me.
That's so cool though. I don't know, it feels cool to hear that from an art teacher because I think sometimes, especially in the fiber world in our community, it's like, oh, there are rules about color and like what colors are supposed to go where and with what and for what. And like, yeah, I know that that's there, but like when you think about what feels most meaningful or most important or like most treasured, it's usually something that's has some sort of deeper connection. So I like the idea of some sort of challenge to connect with that deep inspiration, deeper meaning.
Yeah, and tag me, if you knit something with a self-care collaborative 2020 hashtag,
Yeah.
tag Brie and I, and
Yeah.
then hear your story, tell me why you chose the colors you chose. Maybe put a photo of what you were inspired by with what you knit. So, yeah.
I love that. Even if you don't like cast on yet, or you don't like, oh, I don't have this thing knitted yet, but it's in my queue or it's something I'm waiting on. Or maybe it's like, yeah, I have to get through holiday knitting first, but I went through my stash and I found this, or I went through my art cabinet and I found this.
Yeah, maybe just take a photo of yarns that like slow you down to think about your stash in a different way, even if you never even hit them.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm like, tag me because I want to know. And I want to know like the story. I feel like you have to, I don't know, maybe I'm just nosy, but I'm like, well, if it's something important to you that's giving you inspiration, I want to know. So
The whole point of this, right? We've talked about this before in our book club. I talked to my students about this today. It was the first day of the new trimester, and I said, you are here in this class to tell your story. Like, I'm going to teach you the techniques, but you are here to tell your story in a visual way. What is the point of art? Self-care, tell your story.
yep. Cool.
I also realize I talk a lot with my hands as I'm watching this. I'm not Italian.
I have to sit on my hands, like literally my hands are under my legs. And it happens so much in therapy too when I'm sitting with clients. But the funny thing that happens is like if
Anything?
and we would like see each other, but now it's like sometimes you don't see my hands or you just see my arms, and it's like it looks funny because this box, I don't know, feels like you're supposed to like stay in the lines, and I'm like
You're like, so today.
that's so funny. Awesome. So Wendy, I love that homework assignment. I'm super excited. This was fun. I always enjoy talking to you. I'm glad that you decided to come on here and join me and share some of your wisdom and
I
knowledge.
don't know if it's wisdom, but thank you for asking me to be on it.
No, of course. It was fun. Any parting? You almost just saw me fall and smash my face on the counter.
Any parting?
I would have cracked my tooth. Guys, I just got this crown replaced. That would have been very bad news. My dentist would have been like, no, I'm done. No more. That's it. Any parting words?
I would say I'm gonna piggyback off of Kelly. Spend that time for yourself, even if it's taking a bubble bath. You know, I don't always do that. I was actually dancing in the kitchen last night. That's another thing I do for self-care. I love to dance. So just put my noise canceling headphones on, even if I'm cooking. Like I just love to dance around. So do what you need to do to make you happy, because if you don't take care of yourself during, we're gonna have another lockdown, I'm sure. So do what you have to do to stay sane and happy and take care of yourself.
Cool. And find inspiration.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Wendy. Anybody, thank you for hanging out. If you're still here, if you're still with us.
Any last thoughts from the audience?
No, we didn't really have time for questions. People have questions, drop them. I mean, you could tell them now, but also once this video gets posted, even if you're not watching live, whatever, if you are too, same thing. I'm gonna bug Wendy because I know this happened for Kelly last week. Folks had comments or questions or things to share. And so if you have questions or comments or thoughts about anything we talked about, anything you want to ask Wendy or anything you want to share with Wendy, feel free to drop it down below.
Or just DM me.
Or just DM her.
I don't have a lot of followers, so I get all my messages.
I know. Don't you feel so uncool when people are like, I have too many DMs. You have to email me. And I'm like, no, you can DM me and I'll probably answer in like 2 minutes unless I'm with a client. But like, that's fine.
I have more emails from high schoolers than from people on my Instagram. So
that's funny.
But yeah, we're here. Tag us in your inspiration photos. We want to hear about it.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brie.
Thank you, Wendy.
I have to go to my next meeting, but I'll see you Monday.
Okay. Have fun. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you for
everyone.
See you.